Okay, it's been about maybe 3 years now since I did some pruning on this bright blue Colorado spruce that you see in front of us here. Yeah, I'm gonna keep that smaller. I don't want it to get real large in that area. I've just got a lot of other plants that are gonna eventually be competing with it. So nothing wrong with doing some pruning on some of our evergreens, conifers, and keeping them to a certain shape or size. Hey everybody, I'm Kevin, and before I get started, I'll just mention a couple different things here that I'm going to do on pruning this spruce. The first thing is, on conifers, evergreens in general, you want to make sure you do start pruning them when they hit that size that you like. Too often I get people, they'll have me come over and take a look and say, can we get this 25-foot arborvitae or juniper down to half the size? And they say, you really can't. You've got to start when it hits that size. Otherwise, well, I shouldn't say you can't, because you can cut it off, but it's going to look like heck, I guess is the point I should be saying. But before I get started on doing the actual pruning, I want to point out where I was likely at when I sheared this several years ago. It's probably right in this area. And you can see what's happened is multiple shoots have tried to take off, and well, it's something called apical dominance, where you're going to have multiple leaders. They all try to vie to be the central leader, and that's just a normal thing in evergreens and plants in general. So my goal on this is I'm probably going to start by taking off this tuft right there. Yeah, that complete branch. And then I'm going to prune it down, hoping to leave a little bit of a central leader to get a strong pyramidal look. And I won't be able to do that with something like this. I'm only using this pruning saw for, I guess, illustration purposes, because it's about the tallest thing I had to point out. So I'm going to get up there on a ladder, and I'll use a combination of tools, the Hedge shears, I'm going to use a manual shears, a pruners. Yeah, so it's a good idea to have, well, an arsenal of different pruning tools on hand if you're going to do something like this. Okay, the first step is to cut off that tuft or whorl that I pointed out, which is about 2 to 3 feet long. I'm using a Loppers that can cut larger branches. And then I'll continue cutting some of those lateral branches with the Loppers to see if it's going to be possible to get that nice pyramidal shape I'm after at this height. It's interesting how things look when you're up there and coming back down and taking a second look. And that's part of pruning too, is taking the time to get off the ladder, step back, look at things from different angles, because now I'm looking at this and I'm going to continue with the plan, see if I can shear that tight just at that level, but there's a good chance that I will go down to that second tier. And then I'll switch over to the automatic shears, which will make this go quite a bit faster. I'm using the DeWalt battery-operated Hedge shears, by the way. I use this tool for a lot of different pruning jobs and cutting back perennials in the fall. My manual shears is made by Bahco, a nearly indestructible tool that I've been using for decades now. And as I mentioned, I always like to have both on hand because of the different branch sizes and various angles required for pruning. Yeah, the thing about the extended pole, they work great for a little bit more, I'm going to say, tender foliage. Those rigid branches, they just can't quite fit within that fast-moving sickle, to catch them and get that cut. So I'm going to go back to my shorter DeWalt shears, which is working quite a bit better. And I hadn't mentioned it, but I believe the newer models on this Hedge shears have a wider space for the entry point on the cutting bar. That's really making the difference on these rigid spruce stems with their stiff needles. The Colorado spruce is still doing great in my area of the country, the Northern Great Plains, Zone 4. But if you live in more humid areas, there's a good chance you're dealing with some of the fungal disease problems on the Colorado spruce. So make sure you check with your area garden centers or plant professionals to see if Colorado spruce trees are still recommended in your area before planting. But this type of pruning can be done on, I would think, nearly any type of spruce if you like this more formal look and want to keep it smaller like I'm doing here. But there's always dwarf options to pick from as well, where you may never have to do any pruning, where a smaller spruce like this is desired. The dwarf Shears is a variety that I also grow that comes to mind. It's a beautiful smaller spruce with bright blue needles. All right, we've made it, well, to the worst part of this project, the cleanup. Let's go ahead and let's get some of these branches that we've cut off out of here, and we'll give you a final look at our Colorado spruce. All right, so let's come around the corner one more time, give you a final look at our finished tree. Yeah, I like how that turned out. Fits in there nicely. And before I let you go, I'll share with you one more look at this area from the vantage point of our deck. The sun came out that evening, and it's been enjoyable to see how this area has developed over the years with all the different colors and shapes and sizes of plants working together. I'll link to an earlier video in the description if you'd like to see a little bit more on how this water feature came together and some of the other plant varieties growing in here. My goal going forward then is to prune this on an annual basis. And that's going to help fill in some of these gaps as well. Every time we've done a pruning cut, those lateral buds will branch out and you'll just get a thicker and thicker plant. That's all I've got for now. I appreciate you stopping by. We'll see you again next video.